I'm delighted to have with me now Kate Osborne, whose constituency is Jarrow and Gateshead East.
That's correct.
How long have you been MP for?
This is my second term. I was elected in 2019, so
you
about 5 years.
So even in that time, you'd have seen changes in your constituency in financial services, I think. Have you lost bank branches in that time and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that constituents raise with me on a regular basis. We now have, I think I'm right in saying, one bank across the whole constituency. The main towns in my constituency, Jarrow, Hebburn, Boldon, etc. Yeah, there's one across the piece, yeah.
And I know I know Boldon quite well, and in the past there would have been probably more than one bank branch in Boldon along in the distant past, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they've just all closed.
So people are telling you they don't want that to happen, but it's happened. So
no, they don't.
Have you any bank hubs in your constituencies yet?
No, we haven't. No.
So are you looking to get some?
Yeah, I mean, I know the government have now opened, I think, 100, but when you look across the country and how many banks have closed, we obviously need an awful lot more. I would like not just one, but a few across the constituency, at least one in all the main towns.
Yeah, so as an organisation, although the Payment Choice Alliance's main objective is to have a cash acceptance law, we're also saying if you say that banking hubs are meant to help the country, you need a lot more than the number that have currently been agreed. I think they've agreed 350 by 2029, and we've said 1,200 by 2029, but maybe even more than that actually. So the point is that they provide a genuine local service, so we really need them in every sizable community, don't we?
Yeah, I agree, and I'd like to see more within the post office network. I think that's where we really need to, to use that facility, that community engagement that you already have. I mean, the post office has lost an awful lot of business in different ways over the years. Yeah. But if we had the post offices back as banking hubs, then they would see a lot more revenue coming in other ways as well. Yeah,
and I noticed that in the Labour Party manifesto for the previous election in 2019-20, there was a plan to have a post bank, I think they called it, with 3,600 branches. And when I read back over that, I thought, well, that was a great idea, but what's happened to it? It's kind of gone into the long grass now, hasn't it?
It is a great idea, and I'd still like to see that come to fruition at some point. But certainly, I share your ambitions with the numbers.
Yeah. So in terms of cash, I mean, I would think cash is very important to many of your constituents.
It is, and we know that there's 40 million people that are saying that they want that ability, that choice, and I think that's the fundamental problem with where we are now, is that people don't have that choice, and I think that you should have that fundamental choice to use cash if that's what you want to do. In communities like mine, quite a deprived area, you go into your local shop. There's one gentleman that I met, a 74-year-old gentleman. He likes to walk to the shop to buy his paper. And he told me that he now feels that he can't do that. They don't take cash. They'll only take a card. And it's not just the transaction. It's the fact that was his opportunity to have some social interaction. It gave him a reason to get out the house, to walk, a little bit of exercise, have that interaction, and buy his paper. And he said he now feels that he's in the way. You know, his cash transaction is more problematic to the local shop than it is if he was just to use a card, which he doesn't want to do.
So we have the more senior people, and then we have a whole, I think there's 16 million people in Britain have some kind of disability, and one of our supporters wrote to me and said, my son is, I think, 45, and he has Down syndrome, and they live in Bath, so down south, but basically he actually finds that he's lost his self-esteem because his cash isn't accepted in shops. It was part of the way his life is, partly social, going out, having his cash accepted. Now the shops won't accept his cash. He thinks, I'm less of a person now, I'm less important. And you can't have people who are already suffering from disabilities made to feel worse. That's wrong, isn't it?
Of course, and it's that impact on society. And children, children on the way back from school. I remember when I was a kid, you'd go in and you'd, buy a few pence or, as it was, of sweets. And
for a penny or something, sweets.
And so businesses are actually losing out as well, because not everybody has the ability to pay on a card.
Yeah. And we're also told, oh, well, we've all got smartphones, but the research shows that over 8 million people don't have smartphones. But if you dig deeper into that, I did some work in Stoke-on-Trent on financial exclusion a while back, and we found that about 50%, 60% of people had Chinese smartphones, and those Chinese smartphones weren't allowed to download all the apps, like banking apps. So they couldn't use a lot of the apps. So even if they had smartphones and they were going for slightly cheaper ones, they're not cheap. I mean, an iPhone now costs you nearly £1,000, but it's understandable that people wanted to have a cheaper one. But they had a cheaper smartphone, but they couldn't do the things you can normally do on a smartphone. So that's a financial exclusion again, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, again, in areas like mine, where we saw through the pandemic, there's digital exclusion. So people don't have access to phones. They don't have the smartphones, as you say.
Yeah.
And of course, there's also an impact here on jobs. You go into a supermarket in particular, or even some of the other retail shops in the high street or in the towns, and the only way that you can pay is on a card, on a machine.
Yeah.
And so there's less need for the staffing level was dropped.
Yeah.
So there's not only that kind of lack of social interaction when you go in and you're doing some shopping, and you know, particularly if you live on your own, regardless of your age, you could go around the shops now, pay for all your goods, go home and not have spoken to anybody.
No, exactly. No social interactions at all. Yeah. Well, I was staggered. Lidl brought out a new super app, and it's the only way customers can actually use the app and get certain discounts, and people who pay in cash won't get those discounts. And I'm thinking, how unfair is that? And that's from a retailer which traditionally has been very cash oriented. You know, most Lidl customers in the past would have paid using cash, and now they've turned it on its head and said, oh, if you're going to qualify for these really great discounts, you've got to have our super app. That has to be wrong.
Yeah, and I'm sure if they looked at their customer base, they maybe, you know, would realise that a lot of their customer base are probably people that don't have access to that, you know, to the smartphone or whatever. But you're right, it's a two-tier system, isn't it, for people?
A two-speed society, which we can't have. Well, listen, thank you very much for your support, Kate. Really appreciate it.
No
Thank
problem
you.
at all.
Thank you.